The city of Duluth has become far too dependent on local government aid. The city of Duluth is at the mercy of our state legislators. And at any time, as well as the governor, at any time they can cut our local government aid because they have control of those purse strings. I'd also like you to understand that I think it was 3 years ago, Representative Knobloch from St. Cloud proposed legislation to eliminate our 1% sales tax. That is controlled by the state as well. The only real thing we have control over here is our property tax levy. And we have become so dependent on things like local government aid and our sales tax and our what we call our tourism tax that you pay on your food and liquor in certain parts. It is almost a crime, because when those things are cut by somebody other than your elected officials, those who serve on the council, we see the devastation and the cut in programs and things like that. The administration proposes how much money they need, and the council has the purse strings. We give them enough money to run city government. It is up to the administration to make proper use through efficiencies on that money. And if they choose to cut a program, that is their choice. We simply provide the funding for it.
I guess kind of want to point out a couple things when it comes to our overall budget. One of the things I love about running for city council is it's a time to learn a lot about things, and one of the things I loved learning about was the budget. In the 2008 budget, we actually proposed to bring in about $28 million from local government aid from the state. We also were going to receive about $11 million from the 1% city sales tax, and we were projected to receive $7.7 million in property taxes. So on our overall general fund budget, property taxes only represented about 8 to 9% of the entire thing. So the idea that, well, we can be less reliant on the state budget, that would mean that you'd be cutting 35% out of the budget. And I don't know what in the world you're going to find the cut in the city of Duluth at 35% that isn't going to be a drastic cut to our city services. We're already losing snowplows, we're already losing parks and rec. I mean, the sad reality is we're cut down to the bone in almost every city service we have. And pretty much all we have left are core city services. So, you know, to think that, well, we can be less reliant on the state, that's 35% of our budget. I just want to repeat that. And so to think that you can just let that go away, we are going to be in a really sad situation when it comes to what we do as a city.
Could you repeat the question?
Given the cuts to local government aid from the state, what are your priorities for funding city services? What services would you be willing to cut?
Well, when we talk about the state cutting our local government aid at 35%, I don't know about you, but as I watch the news and what's going on in our state and our community and nationally, I really don't think it's realistic to think that we can go down to St. Paul and say, you know what, we need that 35% back. In the meantime, we better be thinking of ways that we can manage our budgets to cushion that terrible cut. And again, there's one thing that this community, and I used to work in economic development for the state of Minnesota. I used to work in communities all over Minnesota where they spent a lot of time, effort, and energy growing their jobs base. And I see that lacking here in Duluth. And I think it's possible to do it here. And in the meantime, when times are tough, when we're, as our president said today, this is the worst recession since the Depression, we better be thinking locally what we can do to live within our means. I would, if I'm lucky enough to be your counselor, I would ask the mayor to please present a budget without a tax increase, because I've learned from past forums that since 2007, our city portion has gone up 50% in property taxes. So I would like somebody to kind of hold our community's feet to the fire and say, what are we going to do to grow our jobs base? It'll increase our tax revenue. It'll provide our services that our citizens so need, our seniors, our kids. Government should take care of the core priorities first: police, streets, safety.
This is such a huge question. This one we need 3 minutes for. I don't think there's any one of us that disagrees that that we absolutely need to make sure that we have a strong business base that's providing to our tax base, that we have great jobs here for people so they can, purchase homes and they can, do what they need to do. I mean, I think that's a given in terms of something that's needed. But I also think that when we're looking at what cuts have already been made, the city over the last couple years, and I give credit to the mayor and to the councilors for doing this, have made significant cuts. And actually, we've all felt those. There's not one of us that doesn't know how those cuts have affected us in our life. And so we know what it feels like. When people tell me to tighten my belt, I say I have tightened my belt, and this city has tightened its belt too. So we need to go back to what's realistic, and probably some of these services we're talking about as being so important aren't going to come back next year. They're not going to come back the year after that. They're going to be things we're going to have to work on one at a time, and we're going to have to get creative. In Minneapolis, how they've brought back their youth rec program, how they actually never cut it, and this is how they saved it, was they implemented a sliding scale fee so that people who didn't have the money to be able to pay for youth rec didn't, but people who did pay for it. And then that funded the whole program so that everyone throughout the city got an equitable service and all the kids were served. So there's things that we can look at. We don't just have to look in one area. And, okay, I have to be done. Thank you.